94.9 FM in the Senegalese capital and rebroadcast as podcast on Heart FM 104.3 in the Gambian capital Banjul. I'm Sherif Bojang Jr. in Dakar. Thanks for joining us. A Senegalese intelligence report accessed by influential French media outlets Jeune Afrique and Radio France International has claimed that soldiers loyal to ex-Gambian President Yahya Jammeh might be planning to launch an armed attack on the Gambia. According to the report, nearly 300 military deserters who had served the ex-president are in Mauritania, Guinea-Bissau and Guinea and may attempt to destabilize the Gambia. They are reported to be present in the three countries since Jammeh left for exile in Equatorial Guinea in January. Among them, according to the intel report, are junglers, Jammeh's loyal soldiers who had served as his death squad. On June 15, Senegalese Foreign Minister Mankeur Ndiaye, during a visit by his French counterpart Jean-Yves Le Drian to Senegal, said the threats of destabilization in the Gambia were real, though he did not give details. So how vulnerable is the so-called New Gambia to any external armed attack? My guest is Ebrima Chongan, a Gambian British security and law enforcement expert with a vast knowledge of the Gambian security. Currently a policy advisor on the European Criminal Justice, Police and Criminal Justice team at the UK Home Office, he heads the UK delegation to the EU Multidisciplinary Group on Organised Crime, as well as the UK delegation to the EU Law Enforcement Working Party in Brussels. He had served in the Gambia Armed Forces and the Gambia National Gendarmerie from 1982 to 1993. He was responsible for the creation of the territorial gendarmerie and establishing gendarmerie stations throughout the Gambia, particularly in rural areas. Described by Amnesty International as a prisoner of conscience, Chongan was arrested and jailed in 1994 for leading the loyalist forces of former President Sadauda Jawara against the 22nd July coup that brought Yahya Jammeh to power. He was detained for 30 months by the then AFPRC military junta and then moved to the UK following his release. Mr. Chongan, thank you for this interview. As an independent security analyst, someone with a vast knowledge of security, especially in the Gambia, how vulnerable is the Gambia under the new administration when it comes to security matters?
I think we have to look at it from different perspectives. We have to understand where we come from. I mean, we have foreign forces in our country, economic forces, because we have a security problem. Okay, the recent reports about junglers or people deserting the army and going could be interpreted in a number of ways. One, it could be interpreted that most of those people, these junglers, have done very bad things. Or some of these people deserting the army, they've done very bad things, and they are very much afraid that they will be prosecuted or something like that, and they are running away for their lives. But on the other hand, we cannot take any threat lightly. Any country in the world, even United Kingdom where I am, there's always threat analysis. So this threat should not be taken lightly. They have gone to neighboring countries. We don't know whether any of the neighboring countries are sheltering them. I don't know. If at all they are being sheltered in some neighboring countries, I understand some of them are in Guinea-Bissau for obvious reasons. They will not be in Senegal. They will be in a country that is far from the Gambia or Mauritania that might not be friendly to the Gambia. And also, we have to look at what relationship they have with the people in the current Gambian armed and security services. I mean, when I say that, I mean the armed forces, the police, or the intelligence service. So you have to look at it from all these different angles. But what I can say is with the economic forces in Gambia and with Senegal as a buffer zone for Gambia, I don't think we need to be very much alarmed in the first instance, because I don't think so long as the economic forces are in the Gambia, I cannot see them attacking the Gambia.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Should people panic about this issue?
No. People should not panic about the issue. But I think also the Gambian armed forces and the government should have a good communication strategy to talk to the Gambian people. As far as I'm concerned, so long as the economic forces are there, I can't see these people being able to do anything. And they will be stupid or suicidal to try to do something. I mean, in any case, wherever you want to attack the Gambia, you have to go through Senegalese territory. And if you go through Senegalese territory, Senegalese intelligence is very good. It's one of the best in Africa, and the armed forces in sub-Saharan Africa. So they will catch you. There's no doubt about that.
So does that mean any possibility of any armed attack against the Gambia from outside the country will be limited as a result of our geographical location being inside Senegal?
Yes, our geographical location, and also at present we have economic forces there, which is an ECOWAS force, but the bulk of the soldiers are from Senegal.
Talking about these deserters, these soldiers who are alleged to have been in these different countries, Guinea-Bissau and Mauritania, it doesn't seem like the army, the Gambian National Army or the authorities have a clear idea of how many of these soldiers are outside the country. We've interviewed the army spokesperson, and then he gave figures such as 40 or 50, but these intel reports, quoted by French publications Jeune Afrique and RFI, they're saying up to 300, might be 300. This is big enough for a battalion of its own. Is this possible?
Well, there are several possibilities. First of all, the army should have a record of everybody who is a member of the Gambian Armed Forces. And the battalions will know people who are not reporting, so they will know who are the absent without leave who will eventually become deserters. But also we have to be very careful in the sense that Yahya Jammeh was running a parallel state. You have the normal Gambian National Army, but Yahya Jammeh was employing people that were not even going through the army. He left abruptly, so obviously a lot of those people that he employed that were not part of the normal system of the army, they will run away. So even the army will not even know how many of those people were around, or those of them who know them will keep quiet. They will not talk about it. We have to understand that the Gambian army during Yahya Jammeh's time was conceived with a doctrine that was just to make sure that the autocrats stay in power. And we all know that Jammeh went abruptly, and he was running a parallel state. So some of those soldiers, I wouldn't even call them soldiers, some of those paramilitaries who were not part of the Gambian army, nobody had their proper, like when we were in the Gambian army, everybody knows who is enlisted, we know the files, we know every unit who is there. So if somebody is not available, we can easily account for it. But under Jammeh's army, you have a normal army with a parallel militia, the junglers and so on. Nobody knows where they were accounted for. Jammeh had his private army from the normal national army. And also, we have to be honest with ourselves. The majority of the Gambian army are good people. Most of them are professional. But also, the Gambian army fail us. And we have some Jammeh loyalists within the Gambian armed forces. And some of them are criminals. Because I would say, you cannot have in one army where you have the torturers and the tortured in one same army. That's not going to happen. We know the history of the Gambian army. Some of them are compromised and tainted. But the majority of them were just working to put a food on the table for their families. So that is why I think, from my own opinion, we need a national commission, or whatever you call it, or a national defense and security commission, to look at our new doctrine under a democratic government. What is going to be the doctrine of the Gambian armed and security forces? When I say that, I mean the armed forces, the police, and the intelligence service. I think the president should set up a commission to look at Gambian officers who were there before the coup, or some of them during the coup that Jammeh dismissed because they were professional, and also the existing members of the armed forces. So that you set up a group of, 7 or 5 or 9 people with given a limited time to look at how do we restructure our army and write up a new doctrine going forward. And they are
but a lot of people think or would say this is what is happening now. We've seen the hiring of former Army Chief of Staff Masane Kinte from diplomatic mission brought into the country, and we've seen a lot of top-ranking replacements, sackings, and things like that. What do you call that reforms, like the reform process of the army?
No, that is not a reform. What I'm saying is, we have to be very clear. The President of the Republic is elected by the Gambian people. He has a prerogative to appoint anybody he likes, and nobody should challenge that. And obviously, in a normal circumstances, in a normal democracy, you have a couple of candidates who are given to the President with good CVs. They look at it, and the President chooses. There's some appointments like Chief of Defense Staff, Inspector General of Police, Head of Intelligence. They are, to some extent, political appointment. The President has to appoint somebody that he is comfortable with. That's not a reform. What we need is, as I said before, if you listen to me carefully, I said that the Gambian army was conceived under Jammeh with a doctrine that was just to make sure the autocrats stay in power. Mm-hmm. Now we have a change of government. Okay, as I said, the President has a prerogative to appoint anybody he wants, and obviously will take ultimate responsibility for whatever happens in the future, if they perform or they don't perform. But what we need now, our country, if everything was normal, we would not need foreign forces. There is a question of trust between the current Gambian armed forces, with the government, and with the Gambian people. So that is why we have foreign forces there. So we have a window of opportunity. These foreign forces are not going to be there forever. Mm-hmm. So what we need is to create a national commission, a National Defense and Security Commission, to look at how we review all the forces. We need to get a doctrine whether, A, do we align our security with Senegal, because we are surrounded by Senegal. So if we look at it from a tactical point of view, we need to get all our battalions closer to the Gambian coast. Mm-hmm. Because anybody who's going to attack us, you're going to pass through Senegal, unless we are hostile to Senegal. So, for example, like Basse, we don't need a battalion there. We need the police PIU there as a reserve for in the event of riot, etc. What we need is to get our forces closer to the coast, Atlantic coast, because if somebody is going to attack the Gambia, you're going to attack us through the coast. Obviously, we need Farafenye, Kudang was there, that's fine. But what is important here is not about an individual. What is important here, I mean, I understand the new IG is a very educated person, he's a lawyer, etc. Fine. He can be the IG, it's the president's decision. And people have to accept that. But obviously, if you look at the police, you have something like 4 or 5 former Deputy Inspector General of Police. If you bring somebody new to take over, those people should not be there. I'm not saying you sack them, but you need to deploy them somewhere so that the new man will have a free hand to be able to reorganize the police and do whatever he wants to do. Because those people, they will not be happy. I am speaking from experience. When we moved from the gendarmerie to the army, and we met some of the older policemen there, they never liked us, and they were trying to sabotage all the time. The middle-ranking officers, ironically, we were like Yankuba Sonko and all these people. They understood what we were doing, and the junior officers. And they buy into the new philosophy that we were bringing. But what we have now is we have 22 years of dictatorship. So our country, we have a window of opportunity for the next 1 year or so when the economic forces are there before we go. So we have an opportunity to have a root and branch changes to look at how do we reform our armed security forces. And that cannot be left with the hands of the head of the army or the head of the police or the head of the intelligence service. You need to bring a crop of officers who were former officers before the coup. During the coup, Yahya Jammeh dismissed them because they were professional officers. And the current officers who are serving, so that you set up this commission. We have enough people in the Gambia and outside the Gambia, and that is a prerogative for the president to choose whoever he likes, who is comfortable with, so that they can look and address these issues. We cannot brush over the carpet what has happened during the 22 years. We have a lot of people who are compromised and tempted, who's done something. We are not just saying that anybody who worked with Jammeh is tempted. No. a majority of them, they are Gambians like us. They had no choice. They had to work for the Gambia and put food on the table of their family. But there are some people, there is prima facie evidence which is glaring that they have committed offenses, and those people are now in the army. Those people, I'm not going to mention names, I'm not petty, but those people have tortured people, killed people, and they are in the army. And the other officers who they have tortured, they are in the army. So you cannot have an army
would that pose a threat? Would that pose a security threat, especially in the issue of they need to work together as a team?
They cannot never work together as a team. So that will pose a security threat, but not now. That security threat will be after when the foreign forces go. Right now, nobody there to do anything. If you do anything, foreign forces are there. So that is why it is important, and also the need for a commission to review the armed and security forces is important, because the army needs a reorientation and retraining so that they understand that we have a democratic order and they are subjected to the civilian government that is elected by the people. So the permanent secretary, Minister of Defense, and the permanent secretary and the Minister of Interior are more powerful than the Inspector General or the army commander. That is what happens in a democracy.
You are listening to the special interview on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM in the Senegalese capital and on Hot FM 104.3 in the Gambian capital, Banjul. I'm Sharif Young Jr. and today my guest is Ebrima Chongan, a Gambian British security and law enforcement expert with vast knowledge of the Gambian security. We are discussing about the security issues in the Gambia, and our discussion is born out of a Senegalese intel report claiming that soldiers loyal to ex-President Yahya Jammeh might be planning to launch an attack on the Gambia. And let's look at the role of the police. For 22 years, Jammeh reduced the Gambia police force to just traffic officers, like with nothing, no role, apart from the paramilitary who he will send to the streets to, stop protests and things like that. But then now we've seen it looks like the police is going to be in charge of the internal security, for example, and the army military personnel are sent to the barracks.
Well, you have to understand, under Jammeh's time, that was not a normal time. Let's be very frank. In a democracy, you can look at Senegal or you look at the advanced democracies like the UK and France, the army has nothing to do with internal security. That is the role for the police. The Inspector General of Police is responsible for the maintenance of law and order, for the protection of property, the detection of crime, and the prosecution of crime with the help of the Minister of Justice. So, in a democracy, the army is responsible for defending the territorial integrity of the country. And as we know, that is why I'm going back to what I told you before. We need a doctrine to say, a new doctrine, what is the role of our national army. Jammeh has legged a poison chalice to the new government. We have an army which is too big. So there are a couple of options which the government can take. You can take some of that army, reduce it, and use some of the army that is reduced and put them into the police with a new training so that they can be involved in protection of life and property, protecting government buildings, and also preventing crime. But they will need retraining to be policemen to be able to do that. It is the police that is responsible for the prevention and detection of crime and also maintaining internal security. Mm-hmm. So now Jammeh has legged this new government a poison chalice with a very bloated army. But the army can be restructured if you have a commission, as I said, with officers who were before the coup, during the coup. Jammeh dismissed them because they were professional officers. And there are also very good, a lot of professional officers in the current army serving. You can have an army board or commission that will look at how do we draw a new doctrine. And also there's a question, we are in a democracy, there's a question of affordability. Because under an autocracy, Jammeh can give a lot of largesse to the army because his budget is the biggest budget, bigger than education and health, etc. In any normal country, that cannot be the case. So now, the army is used to that, and a democratic government cannot sustain that. So that is why we need to look at this, cost it, and have an army that is commensurate with our population. And also, we can do a lot of things. It's not just about trying to, you don't need to dismiss them. You need to retrain them. A Gambian army can be involved in more peacekeeping. They can be sending a battalion for peacekeeping when they are retrained, but the officers are also, the Gambia Armed Forces Act is there, and there's a terms and conditions, and you have a system where you have to do a certain course to be a lieutenant, certain years to be a captain, certain course to be a major, certain course to be a colonel. But we know there are a lot of professional guys in the Gambian army. I have a lot of respect for them. But also, we cannot brush it under the carpet. We have a lot of people that Jammeh promoted just out of emotions, or they are loyal to him, or etc., and they don't have the training, and they have the ranks there. What do you do with them? You need to retrain them. And there are other possibilities that can be open for those people so that they will still be useful to the Gambia. It's a question of added value. The Gambia cannot afford to have a large army. They do nothing. They are in the barracks. We're feeding them, and they do nothing, and they are idle. They might not be able to do anything today, but when the foreign forces go, that could be dangerous. So that is why we need to work on quickly. And that is a prerogative of the president. He can choose anybody he likes, anybody he's comfortable with.
Finally, my last question. I'm running out of time. The issue, there are a lot of concerns that this army, the deserters and even people who are in the army or who went with Jammeh might have or gone with arms from the Gambia. During Jammeh's time, no one could account for the arms that was available to Jammeh and his military officers. Should Gambia be worried? Should this new government be worried that arms might be in the wrong hands in the Gambia or outside the Gambia by Gambians?
Well, you have a new intelligence service. That is the role of the intelligence service, to find out that whether that has happened or not happened. As I said earlier on, Jammeh was running a parallel state from the army. That could be a possibility. It might not be a possibility, but we have a unique opportunity that we have our brothers from ECOWAS who are there helping us. So the intelligence service should work 24 hours with the army and the police to find out where are these arms. Gambia is small. You cannot hide an arm in the Gambia. So they should be able, within a short period, if they have efficient people, to locate, to find out whether there are arms in the Gambia. If the arms are out of the Gambia, it's a different matter. As I said, we have a very big lock and unique geography. We are within Senegal. We have to respect the sovereignty of all our two different countries, but we need to work with Senegal, whether we like it or not. It will save us a lot of money and save us a lot of hassle to align and have a military kind of cooperation. So that, but you can only have that if you retrain the Gambian army. They are professional. A colonel is a proper colonel. He's done the real courses with the real time and the real age. And then he is respected in Senegal, respected in other countries. And then we can cooperate. There's nothing wrong. I mean, look at the European Union. I mean, Belgium and the other countries who are small, Estonia and so on, they are cooperating with France, the United Kingdom and Germany. But the standards have to be comparable.
Mr. Chongan, thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
That was Ebrima Chongan, a Gambian British security and law enforcement expert with vast knowledge of the Gambian security. We were discussing about the security issues in the Gambia, and our discussion was born out of a Senegalese intelligence report claiming that soldiers loyal to ex-Gambian President Yahya Jammeh might be planning to destabilize the Gambia. That's it for this weekend's edition of our special interview on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM in the Senegalese capital Dakar, and on Heart FM 104.3 in the Gambian capital Banjul. From me, Serif Bojang Jr. and all my colleagues on production, thanks for listening and bye-bye.